Independence Day holiday. That will result in the council meeting being pushed back until Tuesday, February 21st, and it will be held once again here in the police training room. Just a short update on where we are with the renovation of council chambers. It's going along well. There is potential for delays with the Corian countertop that's going in, so we might not get in at the beginning of March. It might not be until the middle to end, depending on where things come in on supply chain. So, but it is moving along well so far. There's been some changes to the lobby area when you first walk in the door, some new paint and new ceiling tiles in that area, and some new lighting as well. So you'll see some significant changes with the rest of the space once that is complete. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Safety Service Director, no report this evening. All right. It's engineer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that we posted the assistant city engineer employment opportunity and have not had any qualifying candidates. So if you know of anybody, please refer them to me. I'd be most appreciative. In the meantime, you will still do what we can and keep up work. So thank you.
Thank you. Director of Finance.
Thank you, Council President. So there are a few pieces of legislation I want to talk about tonight. T16, which is an ordinance amending Exhibit A of Ordinance 6026.22. This is simply a title change as a result of the merger of the Department of, or the Treasurer's Office and the Auditor's Office, and merging into the Finance Department. One of the positions was directly linked to an auditor role. We are just doing a simple change in title. The actual responsibilities will all stay and the salary range is exactly the same. So we are just taking that position from assistant deputy auditor to payroll administrator. I'd like to ask council to consider adopting that ordinance tonight with the emergency clause, just so that we can move forward into the next step of changing those titles with the staff and organizing the departments so we can move forward in that process. In addition to that is T17. This is an ordinance amending annual appropriations. There's a couple items on here I just wanted to highlight. In the general fund, there is an amendment for $51,800. This is in regards to the recovery of the net profit tax, which was directly related to the resolution passed by council in the last meeting. In addition to that, the other big ticket item in this fund is the purchase of additional streetlight poles. There's an amount built in there under the street lighting department to replace some poles. We had a pole damaged on Center Ridge Road, as well as a pole damaged on Chestnut. And what the service department is finding is that there is some supply chain issues in getting additional poles. And so they'd like to have a few spares on hand in addition to getting those two poles replaced. In the special revenue funds, most of this is some additional grant money for the police department coming from the Lorraine County prosecutor. There's some additional amounts built in for physical exams and organ charges for the fire department. And the other one is big ticket item is for cemeteries. This is for indigent burials. These dollars are reimbursed by the state. So the city pays the money out and then requests for reimbursement for those. Under enterprise fund, there are some additional money built in for the Center Ridge Road sanitary sewer project. We did not have to represent the ordinance that allows that the mayor to enter into that agreement or to amend the do not exceed, because the do not exceed is fine as is, but there's some additional money necessary to complete that project. And I believe that is about it. Oh, I did want to mention this section 2 looks a little odd, especially by way of the French Creek. lines under the enterprise funds. I just wanted to remind you that a lot of this is due to the rate study. And because some areas were reduced as part of that study that was adopted, there's some negatives in there to reduce those budgets. Okay. The next one is T18. These are, this is a resolution to authorize fund transfers. These are all appropriated transfers. We do this annually to accommodate debt service and capital improvement requirements as well as equipment needs. All of these were discussed during our annual appropriation process. The only two that changed, which were reduced again as part of the rate study for French, or the two transfers for French Creek. And the last one is T19. This is a resolution amending resolution 1510-2021. Back in February of 2021, the DUI task force grant changed a bit in that it turned into a reimbursable grant, meaning that the city has to spend the funds and then request reimbursement from the state. So what we did is we initially did an advance to that fund from the general fund to give us some residual fund balance in order to pay out the different entities that participate in that grant program. And then in the lieu of us waiting on the state to reimburse us. What we found as part of that exercise is that once the grant period is over, which the grant runs from October to September, because of the delays in getting those reimbursements back, it wasn't easy to reimburse the general fund the advance of $30,000. So what this resolution is requesting is to have that advance changed to a permanent transfer. And so we are no longer participating in the grant, or we're no longer the administrator of the grant. So this way, we will have enough funds available. We won't have to worry about the repayment. Okay. Any questions? That was a lot. All right. And for all four of those, I would like to ask council to consider adopting all four pieces of legislation with the emergency clause tonight to allow the finance department to meet its financial obligations. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Please note that the finance director has also provided council with the December 2022 preliminary financial report. Under other reports, council is also in receipt of the December 2022 mayor's report report, the January 2023 building department report, and the January 2023 fire department report. We also have a council committee report this evening. Clerk, please read utilities committee report.
Utilities Committee report dated January 17th, 2023. The committee shall made a motion to recommend amending ordinance T7-2023 with the following under section 1. Change shall be increased by 4% above the current rate to read shall be increased by 4% annually through 2027. Also to table T175-2022 for discussion at the Utilities Committee meeting on February 6, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Winkle.
move to accept the report.
Second.
Was that Moose?
Yes.
Okay. It was moved by Winkle and seconded by Moose to accept the utilities committee report as submitted. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. All right, your report is accepted. We also have some correspondence. Clerk, if you could please read the correspondence.
A letter from Director of Finance April Wilkerson to City Council dated January 24, 2023 regarding the 2023 water rate calculation for NRCO 1046.05D.
Thank you. There is no old business or new business on tonight's agenda, so that brings us to recess.
Mr. President, move to dispense and recess.
Second.
It's moved by Winkle and seconded by Booth to dispense with recess. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. I will dispense with recess and move on to first readings. It's too far. Clerk, please read T9.
T9-2023, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Ridgeville, Ohio to enter into an agreement between the Ohio Department of Transportation and the city of North Ridgeville for sign installation and maintenance.
Mr. President, we have until April to approve this, so we have some time and just let it go.
I can't access the list of streets. Do we know what streets these are gonna be going on? Or where? That's really-
Yeah, I don't remember the report off the top of my head, sorry. I don't know that it said in the report itself.
I don't recall
I
seeing
think
it in the report.
They're identifying bicycle transportation throughout the state of Ohio and adding signs for those transportation routes. So it's, I don't know that they've identified all the streets in the city of North Ridgeville yet. But I can look.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, clerk, please read T10.
T10 2023 ordinance amending ordinance number 6015-2022, which authorized the mayor to bid for custodial services by increasing the not to exceed amount from $90,000 to $135,000.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
move to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T10. Any comments?
Mr. President, we've had custodial services for quite some time in the city, and that number of 90,000 has not been changed in quite some time. We have been talking with two bidders of the last contract or bid process, where they had suggested that they could not meet what we are looking for in the terms of that contract. And essentially, they said they bid the number that they did so that way they could try to win the contract, not that they could actually perform the services at the price that we are looking for. So as we all know, that prices have gone up for a lot of different services and on the employee side tremendously. And so in order to get the services that we've been expecting or want to have, we need to increase this amount in order to have that happen. That's the explanation for this increase.
All right, very good. Thank you. Are there any additional questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
will this contract include the new police station or is that something totally separate?
That's gonna be separate because we don't technically know when that's going to be finished. And that hopefully it'll be by the end of the year, but more than likely, we'll have to talk about that at that time.
Would that then change this ordinance or would we create a new one for that separate building?
We would probably have to have a separate cleaning contract for that building because this space will still need to be cleaned,
Right, that's.
whether they're here or not.
Okay.
And we have talked about moving other departments into this space once they vacate, so. The contract will still be for the current spaces only.
Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions? So again, it was moved by the mayor and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T10. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, move to add the emergency clause as our previous contract has expired as of December 30th, 2022, and we're looking to enter into a new contract as quickly as possible.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Booth to add the emergency clause of T10 in order to get a contract in place as soon as possible. On that emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by the mayor and seconded by Booth to adopt T10 with the emergency clause in place. Do we have any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Booth. Yes. Avens.
Yes.
Winkle.
Yes.
Haywood.
Yes.
DeVries.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6038-2023.
T11.
T11 2023, ordinance amending section 1268.02, 1270.02, and 1272.02, the North Ridgeville zoning code to update use regulations for car washes.
T11 will be referred to the planning commission for their review and discussion. T12,
T12 2023, an ordinance amending NRCO section 246.09 of NRCO chapter 246, police department.
Mr. President,
yes, Mr. Mayor.
move to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Boost to dispense with the second and third readings for T12. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a couple, Mr. President. This T12 and T15 kind of go hand in hand. What we're noticing is, less people are taking police department tests nationwide. And it is no different here in North Ridgeville. So this is really to kind of level the playing field for lateral transfers. Other communities are trying to take seasoned officers from other communities. And we are just trying to be competitive with both of these changes that we're asking for in T12 and T15. This one increases the age of the employee. So right now, we've talked about how in the future, we have a pretty significant number of retirements that are coming. And so without a good number of mid-tier police officers, we may need to replace some of them with some federal transfers. And they will become, the leaders of tomorrow in a lot of instances. So that's these two ordinances will help us go in that direction and help level that playing field that exists out there, or the uneven playing field that exists out there.
That's it. Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions? So again, it was moved by the mayor and seconded by Boost to dispense with the second and third readings for T12. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, move to add the emergency clause in order to have this take effect as soon as possible, and that we may hire or have a better shot at hiring lateral transfers in the police department.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Boost to add the emergency clause to T12 for the reasons just stated by the mayor. On that emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by the mayor and seconded by Boost to adopt T12 with the emergency clause in place. At this time, are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Boost,
Yes.
Havens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywood,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6039-22.
T13.
T13 2023, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Ridgeville to enter into a contract with CT Consultants Incorporated, a professional engineering firm, to conduct a no feasible alternative study of secondary treatment bypasses not to exceed $70,000.
T14.
T14 2023, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the sludge hauler for the French Creek wastewater treatment plant.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
move to dispense with the second and third readings for T14.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Awake to dispense with the second and third readings for T14. Are there any comments?
Mr. President, we're having a backup of sludge, which is never good words to string together in one sentence. We received an increase from the sludge hauler that we've been using for the last week. And it led to a questioning of whether that was a good price or not. For Timco, the superintendent over there reached out to some other entities and found a better price to haul sludge. So technically, this should lead to a cost savings in that sludge hauling. But since our previous ordinance only authorized us to spend money for one entity. We are now asking for this ordinance, so that way we can spend it with somebody else. Pretty simple stuff, but you know, the emergency clause is necessary again to get rid of that backup of sludge. Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Awig to dispense with the second and third reading for T14. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
President, move to add the emergency clause for the reasons stated earlier.
Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Awig to add the emergency clause to T14 for the reasons stated earlier by the mayor. On the emergency clause, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. It was then moved by the mayor and seconded by Awig to adopt T14 with the emergency clause in place. Are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Winkel,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6040-22.
T15.
T15 2023, an ordinance amending NRCO section 264.05. NRCO chapter 264 Civil Service Commission, providing additional vacation time to police lateral hires.
Mr. President, move to dispense with second and third reading. Second.
It was moved by the mayor and seconded by Winkel to dispense with the second and third readings for T15. Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. President, our police department took a look at the offers that were being made in other communities for lateral hires. Noticed that our vacation time did not meet the majority of those communities, and so we are looking to take care of that by passing this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any additional comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Sling.
if I can ask the mayor, how will this impact current officers? Will they be outbeat by the new guy coming in with 5 more days of vacation, or?
No, it doesn't change their vacation at all, and it's looking to basically make their vacation time equal to what an officer would be getting at the same stage of their career.
So if a new guy comes in from a different city, he could potentially have more vacation time than the guy that's been here for 3 years.
Yeah, he could. If he has like 15 years of service, then he would be getting a corresponding amount of vacation as an officer that worked here for 15 years. So yes, if somebody was only here for 3, yeah, those 15 years of service would give him more vacation than the person that only has 3 years of service.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr.
question I would have, how does this affect our contract with the police department? Does it create any kind of problems? In other words, I'm just wondering if there's any clauses in there that this would come under a conflict with. Have we looked into that?
I don't.
We have a contract,
With the union.
union contract with the police department, correct?
Yeah, and it spells out the number of weeks of vacation that you get for, you know, certain years of service. Yes,
Okay,
so it would follow that same scenario with a lateral hire.
so our contract doesn't differentiate between new hires, even though they have more years.
It's all about time of service, am I correct? Was the other correct? Yeah,
Okay, I just,
so. Yeah, it's, you know, we have a chart like in all of our contracts that say, you know, you have this many years of service, you get this much vacation. And so you're just following that chart for lateral hires.
the years of service doesn't differentiate between years of service with North Ridgeville versus years of service with,
Previous to this change, it would have said that you get less,
okay,
but other communities are offering more. So when you're comparing North Ridgeville to another community, and the person with 15 years of service would come here and get like a week's worth of vacation, that kind of puts us out of the running for that lateral transfer.
well, I appreciate the reasons for it. I just want to make sure that it doesn't conflict with our contract and reopen negotiations, which we don't want to do.
We're doing that anyway for this year, so. There's that. Their contract only goes till the end of the year anyway.
Okay.
Any additional comments, questions?
Yes, Mr. President, just to clarify, going back to the question that Ms. Swink had. If we hired an officer of 10 years of experience last year. And they came in at the lower level vacation because they were new to North Ridgeville. Does that individual now have the opportunity to earn what a 10-year person would have? And if not, how can we rectify that?
Right. You know, when we talked about this at the committee meeting earlier about the prospective look of an ordinance versus a retroactive. You know, we did hire a lateral transfer a few weeks or months ago. And they would not be eligible for this because this goes into effect. I think, were they hired in 22?
Yes, December.
Okay, so. That issue of going back to a prior year becomes problematic, but you know, from this point forward. We're looking at trying to make it even with other communities.
So I'm very much in favor of the legislation is consistent with the private sector. I'm advised we already didn't have it. Because in the private sector, if you have that type of experience, you're making a lateral move, you should be compensated all along the ways because of your years of service. So, good move.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swink?
in my private sector lifetime, it's how long you've done with the company that you get increased. You're within 5 years, you get 3 weeks. I feel like this is gonna cause a lot of animosity. My personal feeling.
I'm more concerned about the long term right now. That hadn't actually come up in any of the discussions that we've had, either with the captain was the one who was looking at the vacation time that other communities were offering lateral transfers, but with about a third of the department retiring in the next 5 to 7 years, I'm concerned about having enough people to actually have a department. So I need to worry about new hires and I need to worry about lateral transfers at this point. Because I think with most of those people that are going to retire being in the drop program, a lot of them could just walk away at any time, which could cause a significant problem for operations moving forward. So I need to do whatever we can to, and we, not just me, but we need to do whatever we can to have enough police officers to operate our department going forward. We have the same situation in the fire department, but we're talking today about the police department.
Are there any additional comments? Okay, so again, it was moved by the mayor and seconded by Winkle to dispense with the second and third readings for T15. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, move the advertising clause for the reasons Mayor stated.
Second.
It was moved by Winkle and seconded by DeVries to add the emergency clause to T15 for the reasons stated earlier by the mayor. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. It was then moved by Winkle and seconded by DeVries to adopt T15 with that emergency clause in place. At this time, are there any final comments or questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Swank?
I'm undecided. Do I need to vote for extension?
Well, I guess that's up
Abstain?
to you. I mean, you certainly could have stayed. You- Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Abstain?
Boost,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Winkle. Yes. Haywick,
Yes.
Breeze,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes,
Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention and becomes ordinance number 6041-2023.
T16.
T16 twenty twenty-three, an ordinance amending exhibit A of ordinance number 6026 twenty twenty-two by changing the title of Assistant Deputy Auditor to the title of Payroll Administrator.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T16. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, motion to add the emergency clause for the reason stated earlier by the Director of Finance.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to add the emergency clause to T16 for the reasons stated earlier by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to adopt T16 with the emergency clause in place. Any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6042 twenty twenty-three.
T17.
T17 twenty twenty-three, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6031 twenty twenty-two of the city of North Ridgeville, Ohio, providing appropriations for the period commencing January 1st, 2023, and ending December 31st, 2023.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries. It
motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
was moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T17. Are there any comments? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, motion to add the emergency clause so that we can provide appropriations in a timely manner as stated by the Finance Director.
Second.
It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to add the emergency clause of T17 for the reasons stated earlier by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to adopt T17 with the emergency clause in place. Are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes ordinance number 6043 twenty twenty-three.
T18.
T18 twenty twenty-three, a resolution authorizing fund transfers.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second and third reading.
Second.
Been moved by DeVries, seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T18. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President, motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, motion to add the emergency clause so that we can authorize the transfer of funds as stated by the Director of Finance.
Second.
It is moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to add the emergency clause to T18 for the reasons stated earlier by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to adopt T18 with the emergency clause in place. This time, are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and becomes resolution number 1584 twenty twenty-two.
T19.
T19 twenty twenty-three. Resolution amending resolution 1510 twenty twenty-one, authorizing fund transfers and advances.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Actually, before we get to that, I did notice a typo in this one. Section 1 of T19 refers to the city auditor. It says the city auditor is authorized to change the advances of funds, so I'd like to make a motion to amend T19 to change the word auditor to Director of Finance.
Second.
Motion was made by Jacobs and seconded by Swank to Amend T19 by changing the word auditor to director of finance under section 1. Is there any discussion?
Good catch.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously and yes.
Mr. Breeze.
Yes, Mr. President, as I was saying, motion to dispense with the second and third readings of the amended version of T19.
Second.
23rd.
It's moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to dispense with the second and third readings for T19 amended. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. DeVries.
motion to adopt the amended version.
Second.
Mr. President, motion to add the emergency clause to read the state earlier by the Director of Finance.
Have a second day. It was moved by DeVries and seconded by Jacobs to add the emergency clause to T19 amended for the reasons stated earlier by the Director of Finance. On the emergency clause alone, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. It was then moved by DeVries and seconded by Booth to adopt T19 amended with the emergency clause in place. Are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Haywick,
Yes.
DeVries. Yes. Jacobs.
Yes.
The amended carries and it becomes resolution number 1585-22.
Okay, moving on to second readings, we have one on the agenda this evening, that's T6.
T6-2023, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to purchase ultrasonic water meters and appurtenances from Badger Meter Incorporated not to exceed $250,000 for calendar year 2023.
There are no further readings on tonight's agenda. As for meeting announcements, a safety committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. here in the police department training room. That is to discuss P4 2023, which is an ordinance regulating the operation of low speed and underspeed vehicles. The next regular city council meeting will also be held on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 at 7 p.m. That meeting will also take place here in the police department training room. And as the mayor stated earlier, the council meeting will take place on Tuesday that week due to City Hall being closed on Monday, the 20th in observance of the President's Day holiday. As a reminder to the public who will be attending those meetings, please enter City Hall at the entrance of the police department. Do any of the council members or administration have any final comments or final comments this evening? All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
So,